everyone, and welcome to the Topographic and Profiled, episode 68 of the Homegames podcast. I'm Yazeed, and this is Joseph.
Hello, I am Joseph, and today is Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. In my closest, what's the word? Anyway, I have to edit this thing in like 2 hours tonight. It'll be pretty cool. Kind of a tight deadline.
I appreciate that thoroughly. But before we get into all that stuff, Homegames. We have some topics.
We do.
Terrain PR. Joseph's got some stuff, including performance profiling, hence the topography and profiling. But how's it going, man? What's going on? What's new?
So not much. First, I'm going to say I know we were supposed to watch Promised Neverland. I totally forgot. Like, normally I watch it 45 minutes or so before we record. Because it's kind of just like prep work for this. I don't actually want to watch it anyway, so I didn't do that this week. I got stuck doing something else. But my main thing this week kind of dominated my week. Have you been following the leak of the Xbox 360 arcade version of Goldeneye 007 for the Nintendo 64?
No, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Okay, so that game was originally made for the Nintendo 64 by Rare, right? People who made like Banjo-Kazooie and all this other kind of stuff. Microsoft at some point in like 2000-something, 10 something, acquired Rare. So because of kind of legal whatever problems, they never released this remake of Goldeneye that they made. Goldeneye, one of like the best, most well-regarded FPS games of all time. Personally, one of my favorite games of all time. They remade it for the Xbox 360, and they didn't release it because of legal shit. And it just never came out. And then, like a week ago, it was a big thing where there was a leak, and people started streaming themselves playing it. the remake, I mean. And it's crazy, because the entire thing is basically done. Like, the game was made. There's some visual bugs, and it's technically a beta, but it's also, I think, maybe illegal to play it. So, because it's a leak of a game that, like, you have to play on an emulator, an Xbox 360 emulator. So what I'm saying right now is that I'm aware that this came out. I wouldn't know how to play it from anything, officer. But I did recently play GoldenEye again, let's say from start to finish. And that game is amazing, and I really wish I could play a remastered version of it for sale, legally.
Did they fix, do you know, like, I don't know if you know this, but did they fix some of the, like, weirdness with the shooting? Like, did they tighten it up to, like, modern day shooting standards, or is it still a little clunky?
No, it's literally like the one-to-one mapping. You remember when Halo Combat Evolved was remade, and they had you could press the back button and switch between the old view and the new view, because the game was actually the exact same, like all the physics and everything.
Yeah.
They do that in this too, so it's the same game.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's pretty great. Like, I've played GoldenEye on an emulator recently. Like, I think last year or 2 years ago, I played it really recently. And, you know, on an emulator, it looks upscaled, but it still kind of looks like shit because it's big, blocky, whatever stuff. But it looks good because you just know what it is. Like, it's not going to look like Call of Duty. It's a 20-year-old whatever Nintendo game. But like flipping between the remastered version and the old version was pretty shocking at points. In the YouTube videos I watched, I mean, because you just kind of be walking, and then like you see the thing that you remember in your head. Like, this level looked like that. The sky looked like this. His characters look like this, and it looks pretty bad. And then when you switch to the remastered version, it's like what your brain remembers it looking like. Like, it's like the good version of a remake. It's like, yeah, these people, I still recognize what this is supposed to be, but if you flip between them, you can see how different it actually is. Being tricked by nostalgia, that whole kind of thing. But yeah, I beat GoldenEye. That game is still really great. Obviously it's impossible to separate my nostalgia for that game. I have like a lot of like good memories of that game, so I can't really say if it's objectively good or bad. I will say that GoldenEye has some truly terrible levels in it, though, especially towards like the second half. There's one called Jungle. This is total dog shit. It's like you can't see anything in front of you. It's an escort mission, and the lady that you're escorting can die like pretty easily. It's like everything bad about games in one level. It's pretty crazy, but the game overall is like, yeah, it's so up there in terms of like my list of games. Like, I can't even say anything bad about it.
Nice. That's really cool. I think it's hilarious that GoldenEye came out so long ago, but game developers still do the bad stuff that GoldenEye did. Like, they literally still make levels that are as garbage or more garbage in retrospect than the GoldenEye levels. Like, oh, GoldenEye an escort mission, it was awful. We have an escort mission, and it's not better. And it's like, okay.
Really? Maybe I don't play games that have them these days. I mean, the last game I can think of that frustrated me with like escort missions was Bioshock 2. That was a long time ago. Like, it's like a different breed of game than Nintendo 64. That era of bullshit of like, hey, Turok, go walk around this level for 45 minutes trying to find the key that you didn't see because it's like 4-foot draw distance, you know, like that kind of shit. That's what those games were, but they're great.
Yeah, Turok is probably my favorite game on the N64. Probably.
I played it recently on Steam, and I liked it. In some ways, I liked it more than I used to because I kind of appreciated the shooting more, kind of realizing when it came out and how this was not really the norm or whatever. And then the look at it's unique, killing dinosaurs and stuff. But that game also, like I said, the backtracking really sucks. And like the nostalgia thing in your brain doesn't remember backtracking through a level for 30 minutes.
I think young Yazeed just got confused and just played the same part of the level over and over and over again.
Dude, yes. So like, okay, in Goldeneye, I just actually, for the first time ever in my life, got to the kind of like hidden missions at the end of the game. There's a main story that you can see and finish if you play on the easiest difficulty. And the way that game works is the difficulty levels actually add more missions. So easy will be, get from point A to point B. Medium will be, it's like agent, secret agent, double agent, or whatever it is. But medium will be get from A to B, but also blow up this computer on the way, or also talk to this guy on the way. So they actually add more missions. But if you play the game all the way through on normal, there's like 2 levels at the end that you can unlock. It's kind of like a special, different, whatever thing. But as a kid, I had no awareness that this was even a system, like that the medium difficulty was even a system. So kind of like you said, just being in the same area for a long time. Like one of my, this is really strange, one of my best video game memories was my mom was like out doing something and I was at my Nina's house, kind of just like being babysat, I guess. And my cousin let me play GoldenEye on his Nintendo while he was going to do something else. So there's one mission where Natalia, like you need to rescue Natalia, you're both being held prisoner or whatever. And the mission starts with you being interrogated and your gun is on the table. You have to go get the gun and shoot the 2 dudes and then you go and save Natalia. But if you don't leave that room, enemies spawn infinitely into the room and you can just shoot them. And that game is really fun to shoot guys. Like if you shoot them in the knee, they hold their knee. If you shoot them in their neck, they like hold their neck. And that shit's amazing when you're 5. And it was new at the time. So,
it still is because for like a period of time where that wasn't the case in video games again.
Yeah. Well, like in Call of Duty, you don't really get that. Not to the same level of like animation and stuff. Like it's super obvious in GoldenEye when you shoot guys and where you shot them, which is really not a thing, like you said. But no, I spent maybe like over an hour that night just waiting in a spot, shooting guys as they walked in and watching them die. Like, because it was like an interesting game mechanic, and I was having fun shooting them because it was different enough to just shoot them, which is something that like if you think about Call of Duty, like how do they make it obvious that you shot a guy? They add a hit marker and they add all these numbers on the screen. But if you think about Insurgency, when you shoot a guy, you know you shot him because he fucking crumpled over and died. Like a game has to be good to just play. Like it has to do that thing for you when you play it, and GoldenEye does that without that shit, you know.
Mm-hmm. No, listen, that sounds sick. I like GoldenEye a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy that the game is as old as it is, but there's still stuff in there that's like, wow, this is really cool.
There's also just like a lot of personality to it. The characters are all like, I don't know. It just feels like, again, I can't separate the nostalgia, but it just feels like it's a game that is better in a lot of ways than a lot of other games that I have played recently. Because there's like a feeling to it. It's just different, and that could just be.
I wonder how much of it is that there's not the same polish. Like that game is well made, but I wonder if it's because they literally just like took a layer of polish off of the game in comparison to modern games.
Maybe. I mean, do you mean like the kind of buttoned up presentation that games need to have these days?
Like the ultra tight everything, and like, oh, somebody QA'd every square inch of this, where it's like, cool, that I probably didn't have that.
Well, like GoldenEye, if I'm not mistaken, was made by like a small team of people making their first game. Like they didn't have a lot of experience and stuff like that. So
sorry, when I nod my head, I shake my desk. So I'm gonna take my foot off the
it's all
desk.
good. I have a thing where I keep leaning on the desk and I keep doing that. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's a game that was of an era in the way that like we can't replicate it. Kind of like we were talking before the episode, but that is an era that is gone, and you can go back and appreciate GoldenEye and acknowledge that it's like I'm not playing GoldenEye really, except for the nostalgia at this point, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, to your Promised Neverland point, we can stop watching that show. I'm not really enjoying it anymore.
Did you watch episode 4?
No, I just thought more about episode 3 and how uninteresting that show has become.
Well, I do like the show thing. I mean, even if it's not that one, I have a Crunchyroll subscription. If you want to find some other anime that's maybe a little.
Listen, how about you find an anime? Because I'll watch something that you pick. Because this show is like, I like the theory of this show, but I think the problem is they've kind of crumpled a little bit. Like they don't really. This seems like they're a little bit stuck. Where they like, kind of like wrote themselves into a corner now, and it's like, okay, all right. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess for me, it's like I'm not super interested in the. Well, not that I'm not interested. I'm not engaged with the story because it seems like I'm just waiting for the next event, and they keep kind of repeating the same exposition, the same kind of context, and I'm just waiting for the next plot point. And it's like, oh, cool, you know, she found out that they're trying to escape or whatever. Whoa, you know, but I'm not like, wow, she found out they're trying to escape, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, in comparison to The Sopranos, which, I mean, like you were saying, the plot moves kind of slowly in that show, but it moves. So far, we're on episode 3, and I feel like exactly the same spot we were in episode 1, almost.
Yeah, like last week we were talking about episode 3, and my update was, like, exactly what I just said. She found out that they're trying to get out. What they do in the first episode, they try to get out. What they do in the second one, they thought that the lady thought she was that they knew or whatever, that she knew. And then the third one, oh yeah, she knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is a problem. I want to do more research on how anime is written. I want to know how anime is written because I'm really curious where the writers come from for anime. Because, like, imagine this. Episode 2, they think she knows. Episode 3 never confirms it. They just have the new lady show up, and we don't see how they interact with each other. I think that would be even better because now there's like, well, she probably knows and or is in trouble or something, and there's like more questions, and you can see how the kids like are trying to like feel it out. Maybe they have like a weird way of like showing you what's going on instead of like not like telling. Sorry, they have a way of like telling you what's going on than like letting the show play out, because the show feels like it's supposed to like a thriller where there's like tense moments, but I feel like they're also like, here's a tense moment, and the next episode they're like, well, that moment was tense, wasn't it? Here's why. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I get that. I guess it makes it nice to do as like a secondary activity when they keep just spelling out what's happening constantly. My experience, I think we talked about this before, but in my experience, that's pretty common with anime, and I don't know if it's just like a convention that kind of just became a norm or whatever, because it's like, of course you got to over-explain everything, but I haven't watched enough anime to know if that's the case. I'm sure the anime people are like, no, like, there's obviously this one over here, you know, like, that's good, but I haven't found it yet.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Same. On my side of things, I finished She-Ra, Princesses of Power on Netflix.
And how was it?
My only complaint is the ending didn't have the thing I wanted most. And that's not really much of a complaint.
Without spoilers, is it like, generally what are you talking about?
I wanted her... Fuck, how do I explain this without spoilers?
Wanted her fuck? It's not that kind of show.
No, not that. I wanted the final showdown to be more than the rest of the show, if that makes sense. Because like She-Ra is power, and she's like supposed to be overpowered, and the show isn't about how much she can like. The show isn't about She-Ra's so strong, here's a really strong opponent for her to fight. It's more like her grappling with like the difficulties of being strong all the time, or like the need to be strong all the time versus like the human's inability to be strong all the time, basically. And not like physically, I mean like emotionally, mentally, physically as well. And I wanted the end of that show for her to have like an epic showdown and like to really go all out so we could really experience how strong She-Ra can be. But the end of the show is just like, by the way, She-Ra is really strong and nobody can compete with her. And I'm like, I wanted at least one episode where there was somebody who could compete with her.
So I haven't seen this show, and I haven't seen much of One Punch Man, but I get One Punch Man vibes from that, where it's like the problem isn't the people this person's fighting, because that's like secondary. It's the problems that kind of come after that.
Kind of, yeah. A lot of this show is like it's a young girl growing up and having to deal with like an insane responsibility, and like how does a young person deal with that, and like the stress and anxiety and like all of that stuff, and like how do they navigate friendships and like versus like how do they the whole I guess it's kind of like One Punch Man, but it's not like she's not apathetic. Like she's the opposite. Like she's super emphatic. Like she's really engaged with her world. Whereas what I got from one episode of One Punch Man that I saw is he's like
Out of
not.
it.
Yeah. So it's like it's kind of like that, and that like they explore similar topics, but they explore it differently. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
That show, She-Ra, is really well made. I like that show quite a bit. I don't know if you would necessarily like it, just because I don't know if you would enjoy the way that the story plays out, if that makes sense. Like I said, like it does have elements of like old school superhero TV shows where like the lead character is like basically always winning, but I mean that's kind of like what the show's for.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things for me to learn is that sometimes it's not about the character or kind of the main plot line. It's like the secondary stuff. Like Superman is invincible except for kryptonite. So in all the stuff where he's fighting against something and he's invincible, the engaging part isn't the tension of watching him fight people, it's the like why, and that's kind of the point. So I've gained an appreciation for that stuff lately, but I still don't think I like it as much as like this thing is funny, it makes me laugh, like Half-Baked or whatever. I'm a simple man, you know.
I mean, you are, except you also really love like quite well-made TV shows like Breaking Bad and The Sopranos.
Well, I do have quite a taste. Quick update on Sopranos. It's still great.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, just nothing, a whole lot going on there. I guess I will say it's fucking weird. Like the character who played the mom in The Sopranos died in real life during the filming of the show. She's like an old lady, and you know it wasn't like unexpected or whatever. But she died during the filming of the show, and I think they did like an early Paul Walker on her because there's like a really weird flat CG looking version of her face in like her final episode before they kill her off in the show, and it just looks really bizarre. And like even in Synovia, the second the scene, like the frame came on, she was like, something is really off about the way she looks. So it really just caught me off guard in a show where like you can see there's just so much attention to detail and so much attention to kind of making sure that this thing is still good in 50 years, and then you see that and you're just like, what the fuck? It looks terrible. But yeah, no, anyway, show's still great.
Nice. I'm glad you like that show.
Yeah.
Kind of like the last two things for me is I took my dog on a hike for the first time on Sunday.
Nice. How'd she do?
Yeah. She almost killed me, but it's okay.
She almost kills you every week.
Yeah, a little bit. I've been putting this off, and I need to work on it with her. Is not pulling after anything that she wants to. And she tried to pull me when we were on like a cliff face, basically. Like it's a really narrow walkway, and to your right is a drop straight into like basically it's like maybe like 2-story drop onto some rocks and then like a roll into the lake.
So like and a fatality stage in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, and then to your left is like a pretty sheer cliff face, and she wanted to go down towards the lake, which obviously she can and I can, but I can't do that when she's pulling me. And so what happened is like my boot slipped out from under me, like it kicked up all the soil that was under me, and I almost fell, and I had to like grab onto the rock face to my left and like hope that my arm strength was better than her pull. And she stopped. Actually, when I fell down, she really is a sweetheart. She stopped pulling and she came to check on me. And she got up in my face and gave me a lick or two and was like, "I love you. Please don't be dead." But and then the other thing too is I'm actually really happy about this. About so we went to a lake and she immediately wanted to get into the water. And so when I let her, she laid down in the water and was like, "This is nice." And I was like, "I like this about you. We're getting there."
Nice.
So we're closing the gap on giving her baths.
That's awesome. What do you think is the difference? Do you think it's because like you were outside and the water was like in a different context, or do you think she's actually coming around to water?
I think we're slowly getting there. I think that she's been okay. I've been to the lake with her a couple of times, and she's becoming more okay with getting into water. I think that I still have a lot of work to do with getting her to accept water being sprayed at her. Because like I said, or maybe not have said, I think that they used that as a punishment on her when she was younger.
Yeah.
And she's really like freaks out about it. It's like I need to like ease her into it and just kind of like introduce it slowly and reward her when she accepts it.
The slow drip.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Just, love and affection comes slowly with her.
Yeah.
But last thing for dog stuff, and actually the last thing from my notes, but last week was agility class, and she was doing really well, and her leash got stuck on one of the obstacles, and so the instructor was like, "Look, she's doing really well. Do you want to try her without a leash on?" And up to this point, I've literally never been in public without her having a leash and like very tightly holding onto the leash because I know what she's like. And I was like, okay. So we tried what's called like a little tab, which is like a quarter leash. So it's like really short and like really light. And basically it's only there in case I really need to grab her and pull her off of something. Mm-hmm. And she ran the whole course really smoothly, really nice, super focused on me, and crushed it without me having to like handle her. Like I literally was just like moving around, like giving her the commands, and she was doing it. And I was so amped up because there were other dogs and she had to like get up in their business to like finish the course. And they didn't really react to her because their handlers had her and she didn't even notice them. She was like so single-mindedly focused. And I was like, I almost got in my car and was like, I'm still so excited about it, dude. Like, oh my god, this has been like 10 months in the making. Yeah. Holy moly.
Like a proud dad. It's like there's my girl. That's cool.
Yeah, it was nuts. Like, oh my god, like there's hope for her yet.
Nice, that's awesome.
Like I was starting to get to the point where I was like, I'll never be able to like not always have her really close to when we're in public, but now I feel like if we just keep working on this stuff, like she'll get there.
Yeah.
And today she saw javelinas and didn't try to pull me into the street to eat them. She just pointed them out and wanted to stare at them, and I was like, god damn,
that's progress.
So close. We're getting there. Honestly, like that's what I want her to do, is to alert me of stuff, because I don't always have the best vision, and javelinas are kind of hard to see out in the desert. So it's like that's what I want her to do. Just like look at them and stand on one foot and be like, there. That's where they're at.
Yeah. Nice. Congratulations to Sapphire on doing a great job,
Thank you. I love her so much. It's ridiculous.
Nice.
All right. Do you have anything else for our weekly update, or are you going to move on to home games?
No. Yeah, it was a super busy week for me, but I didn't really do anything except home game stuff and regular living my life things. So, yeah, home game stuff is next for me.
Hell yeah! All right, let's do it, man. What's going on with home games?
Quite a bit's going on with home games, Yazeed. Let me tell you about it. I'm gonna run through this list really quick, and we can kind of go through stuff. But a lot of things changed. So. One, I also made a video about these things, kind of a 15-20 minute demo of what I'm talking about here, at least everything that's done. So we have performance profiling now in our master branch of everything. We have the ability to know what client connected to it. So like basically we know if there's a tablet or a phone or a computer connected to the game server. There was a home names fix that I had to make for that as well. I also, based on what we talked about last week, I updated my spectator stuff to essentially do the default view by default with no game developer having to do anything to support that. But I also added the ability for a developer to add kind of a custom spectator ID to kind of alias like a specific view for a spectator. So that's also there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also updated my hotloader script to run a small WebSocket server that will also hotload the client when a server side change happens. So you can just make a change and then browser will reflect your change. I added a settings button. So previously the settings were kind of this hidden menu in the dashboard where if you clicked the home button to go home and then you click the home button again on the dashboard, you would get a settings menu. So now that settings menu is persistent everywhere. You can always get to it through whatever game with a button. Button's not final. Nothing is final there, but we have the ability. Started working on kind of a larger offline mode, but I made some progress there in terms of just being able to download and store assets offline. And then I thought about some stuff. So the board behind me has like most of this, but the three things I mainly thought about and kind of know that they're big things. First is dashboard themes and layouts, some sort of way to say like, I don't know, I just think of like the Xbox 360 and one of the cool things there was like the functionality was always the same, but it looked different. You can personalize it. And I think that is kind of we'll talk more about this later if you want, but I think it's kind of a start for kind of like templates and general component libraries we can make available for people to make kind of standard layouts of things that are pretty common. But whatever. Other thing I was thinking of is Webgl. So essentially through the performance profiling stuff, I discovered that the bottleneck is mostly on the client, just being able to render stuff fast enough. And Webgl is basically like a lower level API to do the same stuff we do with the canvas today, but a little bit more performant. So that's something to look into, I think. And then the third thing is the ability to play. I think we talked about this before, but kind of in a more formalized thing, thinking about friend linking, kind of the ability to, I don't want social bullshit in anything, but I do think the ability to have like a friend list. So I can say, hey, Yazeed is my friend and Yazeed is playing a game on his local network over there. I want to join them in the way that Jackbox says like, hey, give someone this code and they can join from anywhere. Basically the ability to have like a one Homegames thing play with another Homegames thing based off of some friend list functionality type thing. So that's my list. Does anything stand out as particularly interesting or super stupid or anything like that?
Okay, I think the biggest part of this is probably going to be us talking about the performance profiling, because did you ever put that in your video too, or is that
I did, yeah.
Kind of you did? Okay, cool. I need to watch that video then. But maybe I can get like the
I can give you the gist
shorter
here.
version of that, please.
Yeah, so essentially what we have now is the ability to set a configuration variable, just performance profiling true or false. When you set it to true, the node process, I guess just generally speaking too, I made the code a lot worse when I did all this stuff. I added more spaghetti than you've ever seen in your life. Yeah, it was fucking atrocious what I did to our code base. But anyway, so yeah, performance profiling stuff. So it'll when this value is true, it'll collect CPU and memory data on a interval and report it back to the Homegames root, which then is able to render kind of outside of the game. We have the game and we have it scaled inside of the game frame. It's kind of like the Homegames root rendering everything on the outside and the actual game being rendered on the inside without knowing it's a subtree or whatever. And so I essentially had to do that again to add kind of another separate frame, if you will, of performance data. So the game, again, doesn't know about this, but the Homegames root is saying, okay, well, I'm in performance profiling mode, so I'm getting all the data from the squisher to know how often it's rendering, how long it's taking to squish on each iteration for the squish time, which I'm calling TTS, time to squish. And that whole thing, I spent a stupid amount of time trying to get that CPU percentage value, basically of this thread that your process has, how much of it are you actually utilizing or whatever. And that was a nightmare. So I had to find an NPM package that would do that for us. So it gives us CPU and memory data in like a human readable format. It was like 2 hours of bashing my head against that. So I just used an NPM package. But yeah, so essentially the Homegames root just takes this data and then renders some very simple graphs, just showing you over time, like, hey, takes on average 1.5 milliseconds to squish the entire tree. Your CPU usage is at 30%, your memory is at 5% or whatever, and it'll just show that on top. And that's on the server side. So it also sends a message to the client that says, hey, I'm doing a performance profiling mode or whatever. I'm calling it performance profiling. It's not really what it should be called. I'm just calling it whatever, performance mode. And so the client at that point says, okay, well, now I'm going to keep track of every render that I do. So the kind of render cycle on the server is different because it lives in one place. It's the kind of canonical game state. Like the game updated and that is true. This is the source of truth. And that was a render. Like me saying game updated and I did something to make it like a frame. That time is separate from the time it takes the client to take that frame and actually put it onto the canvas from start to finish. That time is actually significantly higher than it is to squish it in the first place. So anyway, you get a little graph of that as well, of just the time to render on average and then the FPS. So it'll just take like the last 60 or last 100 frames or whatever, and then run some, just run a calculation on average over these, how long did it take me to render these last 60 frames? If it was a second, cool, I get 60 FPS. But it's just an average, it doesn't account for frame times or anything like that.
Nice, cool, okay.
Yeah.
And when you ran that, were you running it on, I know you said last week that you were going to run it on a bunch of different stuff. Did you see like pretty much standard across the board that it was the rendering, not any of the server-side work?
No, I didn't try it across the devices I wanted to. I basically kept them on the charger all week and was like, I'll get to it, and then I didn't. But I do think that the thing I realize is, like I said, it's mostly bound by the client rendering stuff is kind of what ultimately drives the perceived bad performance. Because if it's 1.5 milliseconds to squish the stuff on my laptop, I mean, even if you multiply that by 10, we're still able to get 60 a second. The problem is the clients. So, but yeah, no, haven't run it on other devices yet, but I still plan to do that at some point.
It's the age-old thing from like CS 127A. I/O is like the most demanding part, or like the most time-intensive part of any program.
It's always a network activity and disk reads and writes and stuff. But yeah, so it's nice to have it. And again, the games don't have to do anything to enable it. It kind of just exists kind of out of the box, I suppose, for every game that we have. Because the Homegames root runs kind of above the game, it can do things that kind of supersede, I don't know, whatever the game, and all the logic or all the rendering stuff there. So, yeah, like I said, game doesn't have to know about it, and all it does, like, it just works because it's just pulling from the squisher, which doesn't have any kind of specific game knowledge or game logic. It's just taking your stuff and squishing it. So, you can see the difference, I guess, in something like the image test, where you just drag an image around it, you can resize. Like on my laptop, that peaked at about 20% CPU usage, but if you run Square, once it gets to the later levels, that thing runs like shit. Like, well, it doesn't run like, I mean, it doesn't run great, but it uses up a lot more CPU than it did in level 2 or whatever, and it's obvious. Like, you could see it, and it's nice to get the graph that corresponds with it. Be like, yes, that does look worse. Yeah.
I see. Okay, and that's not like an issue on the server, right? Like the code isn't on the pre-squished stuff. Isn't what's slowing that down, correct?
Pre-squish,
or is it?
No. So that doesn't have awareness of the actual game logic. It's just the time from the last time a state update triggered. So anything in your game tree changed. From the time we received that to the time that we finished rendering everything that you had. And so that time is 1.5 milliseconds or whatever, but the CPU graph is just the CPU of the entire process, which is running your game. So I would guess it's because of all the intervals that you have in Square that are constantly moving all these blocks, and there might be some more performant way to do that. I started thinking about our bottleneck is actual number of game nodes on the screen. That's why if you go to the performance test, it shits its pants at like a tenth of the way down the screen, because it gets so many game nodes to the point where it just chugs. But if you keep it below that number, it's generally pretty good. And so I was trying to think of ways to optimize that, where basically, you know how like old cartoons or just cartoons, you would, like in Tom and Jerry or something, you would see in the frame like what was gonna move and what was like static because the way it was animated. So like something looks like it's a background texture or whatever, and other things that are about to move. So if we had a way to kind of designate stuff as like you can kind of rasterize this into the background and make it one flat layer, because it's not going to move soon, but when it does move, you kind of yank it back out, stuff like that to basically condense non-moving things into one game node. But anyway, that's kind of a rabbit hole. But yeah, I was just thinking of that as a possibility.
Right on, yeah, and 100% the Square code could be better. That's something I
just to be clear, my intent was not to be like fuck you and your shitty code. I think
no, listen, I get it. I understand what you were getting at, but also like I understand why Square chugs because like I wrote that without really understanding fully how everything is supposed to like click together.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we need to, in addition to like figuring out like where the bottlenecks are and fixing those bottlenecks, but like maybe also put up some guardrails and be like, hey, if you're gonna cross this point, like be aware you can really mess up performance, or like you're gonna be not performant.
Yeah. But I do think it's like obviously it's nice to have these tools and like you said to kind of fix the bottlenecks that we don't know about. But like for me, it's just like it's just that to like the fullest extent. Like I really just like seeing where stuff gets slow or where it breaks and all that kind of stuff. So just having that data available is nice. And like I said, just to kind of confirm, like if I'm playing things like playing games and I see that they run bad, I have no way to confirm that they're running bad, or if it's one of the other variables like the screen I'm using or the lighting making everything look shitty or like you know what I mean, the weird things like that. So yeah, but in terms of like guardrails, I just think we would need to first know what our limits are so we can say, okay, yeah, you can comfortably have, 500 game nodes in your tree if your CPU has like 2.4 gigahertz, whatever the hell, you know what I mean? Like having that kind of a number is kind of like the minimum specs thing that we talked about before, where it's like, hey, if you want to make a game that runs on a Raspberry Pi, don't have 1,000 things. Something as basic as that, and then kind of making it so our stuff out of the box does as good of a job as possible to make that easy to do.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
The next question I have is on the WebGL stuff. So WebGL is the underlay of Canvas, or is it like a similar technology?
Yeah, I believe it's the underlying APIs that Canvas is actually calling. So I might be. I did like a hello world with WebGL, and it was like 50 lines of code, just fucking insane. It reminded me a lot of MIPS, like you have to load shit into registers and all that kind of stuff. It's I've never written WebAssembly, but I imagine it's kind of similar maybe in syntax. I don't really know. I don't know anything. But yeah, I do think WebGL is kind of the underlying API set that the Canvas stuff is calling underneath.
Okay, and then I guess the question is like, why would we switch to using WebGL to render, or?
I think it would be an option because my understanding is that WebGL uses the GPU to render, which is significantly faster when that processing is available. So it would have to be some sort of a check, or basically we would have to confirm that the device would run better with WebGL. Otherwise, we would have this existing Canvas stuff. So I've been meaning to rewrite the web client for probably since I first made it. Like I was like, wow, this is dog shit. I'll come back, and that was like 2 years ago. So I do need to rewrite that stuff. But I think knowing now that we'll have these kind of swappable implementations of the rendering stuff, I also think it'd be really cool, kind of in the like open source nerd type of way, to be like, hey, yeah, this system, you can write a game for this rendering stuff. You can also write your own renderer for our game stuff. Like, you can do that shit. So making it kind of like showing how cool all these pieces can work together, showing that stuff, I think is cool. So, yeah, WebGL, we'll see.
Nice. Is that going to be on your docket for like this year, for next year? Like where do you see like you taking care of that?
Yeah, I guess this was just kind of like one of those things that I thought of, kind of like friend linking. Like, I don't know where that falls in, if it falls into our roadmap or whatever. Just kind of wanted to throw out the ideas, that whole kind of a thing. I'm not adding anything to this year's list of tasks. I did kind of shove some things in, like the hot loading fix and the offline mode and the client type awareness I shoved in as well. But I still had to do performance profiling as like my real objective. So if I have another weekend where I'm like in the mood to write a bunch of code, I might, do a little WebGL proof of concept. I just know it's super hard. Like, it's not something I can just pick up casually. Like, I'm super comfortable with JavaScript. I get the math kind of like 2D rendering and stuff, but calling the WebGL library to do the thing that I think I understand is gonna like fuck me. So I can't just do that quickly, I guess.
Right on. Yeah. I guess last question on there: is there ever a case where using using the GPU is less performant than using the CPU?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't actually know. That's why I said it would need to be like better if you ran WebGL, just because WebGL is available on a device. I don't know if that means it's better. So maybe that would mean that there's some sort of initial like testing of like, here's some frames, paint them to the thing and see what's faster, or like if there's some way to programmatically get the like some to quantify basically the processing power of each to know which one to pick. But I don't really know.
Okay, cool. I guess one more question on this. Because we're going to go underneath Canvas basically and go to WebGL, it seems like we would be getting more utility, no? Because like Canvas probably does have some like stuff that it just can't do that WebGL probably could do.
Yeah, a big thing I think is shaders and like shader libraries and things like that. And I have no clue what a shader is. It's one of those things that I wanted to ask Trevor during our like Unity episode that we still have to do. But basically there's like words that game developers use, like shader and like texture map and fucking whatever. Some of them you could probably infer, but others where it's like, I don't know what you're talking about, and I'm sure I have to think the way that you think to like know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure that shaders at some level is someone explaining math to you, and I just like don't get it. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's something I'll have to learn about too, I guess, is what the fuck a shader is, and maybe we can incorporate them into Homegames, and you can reference a shader pack or something, and people can write their own shader packs. But I don't know. I have no idea what that is.
I'll talk to Trevor about seeing if he'll do next week for us.
Yeah, that'd be great for episode 69.
Yeah. Hell yeah, he'll be in for that. What was I gonna say? Because we still need to do the Unity episode for sure.
Yeah.
Next question: the offline mode. understood. How loading settings buttons. What's underneath the settings button? I don't know if you cover that or not.
What's underneath the settings button? You mean like
what is the settings button? What are the settings for the settings button?
Yeah. Okay, so that's a great question. So at the moment, it is the version of Homegames that you're running, but it doesn't work if you run Homegames in a particular context. I think if you run the package, like if you run npm run develop or npm run start on both packages locally, you get the correct version value. But if you run it like from the binary, it just gets an undefined there because I'm pulling the version from an npm environment variable that gets like automatically set when you run the process. So that would show up if you have it. There's also your name, which has always been there, or has been there kind of for like since the beginning of the modal, which I don't really know what to do with that yet, but you can change it, and then that was another change I had to make for home names, because home names, for those unfamiliar, is the very microservice that runs alongside Homegames when you run it on your computer. Basically, it serves as the metadata store for a user. So when you move between games, you're actually moving between game servers, and the game servers need to know when you connect who you are. Before that was just your name, but now it also has client info, so it knows if you're a phone or whatever, and instead of having to exchange that with the server every time, it can remember from this shared service of home names. So I had to update home names to support client stuff and whatever, client device info. Why did I mention that? Oh, because your name is on the modal. And so when you update your name there, it actually, in a very hacky, shitty way, updates home names in like its little local database. So anyway, that's there. And then it also has info on the assets that you have locally. So one of the big changes I made, relatively significant, is that I changed every game that had assets and removed assets from the instance of the game, and it made it a static property in the metadata. So because the assets that a game depends on are static and they don't change, like if you know that you have 6 images of Kanye West for your game, you don't need anything else, then you can always just have that list of the 6 image URLs, and you don't need a game to know that those are there. So anyway, move that out to the metadata. So now the squisher can just say on a programmatic or in a programmatic way, all these games have this many assets, and this is all the info about these assets. I don't have to instantiate any of them to know that. And so because there's this local asset cache, I also had to rewrite the stuff that stores assets locally, because it was just a nightmare. I was still figuring out promises, so I had async functions mixed with promises, and everything was stupid. So anyway, I wrote that stuff. But now the offline mode thing is that you can cache these assets for offline. So say we get to a point where, we have 50 games and they all have 2 assets each. So then there's like megabytes and megabytes of images and audio and stuff that are going to be referenced at some point. And before offline mode, you would have to go to each game that you wanted to play, hit every single code path that would instantiate or initiate these assets, and then hope that was still there or whatever when you came back later. So as like a test, I set up a router not connected to the internet. My uncle got this router at a Radio Shack a long time ago. He's like, "Oh, you're into nerd shit. Here you go." And so I have this set up with no internet access. And so the test for offline mode will always be if it works on that thing. But yeah, so like I said, you can just hit the button, download your assets, and take it offline, and then everything will still work. You won't get homegames.link, obviously, because there's no connection to it, but people can still go to the local IP and play a non-HTTPS, shitty, but functional version of Homegames.
Hey, noise.
Yeah.
Noise. I think that kind of covers everything I have questions on now. I'm interested to hear your talk about the friend linking stuff, but maybe I'll let you flesh it out a little bit more before I ask about that.
Yeah, well, like part of it is just like to kind of think out loud. Like I don't know if these are terrible ideas or not. Kind of just, they came to me at some point and was like, oh, maybe I should think about that. So like the friend linking thing to me seems like not easy, but straightforward. You have like we already have these accounts with these unique usernames. So if I say, hey, add me on Homegames, I'm Yazeed, then I add you, and it gives me some, again, everything like this I want people to be able to opt out of. So this is going to be whatever, but you can opt into this like friend system. And so you'd say, okay, yeah, Joseph's my friend, I know that guy, add him to my list, and you get some like basic profile, because again, I don't want to make a social, that's not the focus. The focus is I know that this thing is this person, so I want to play this game with this person. I don't give a fuck about what like their status update is or whatever. I do, but like not on the Homegames social app, you know what I mean? So yeah, it would just be like this friend list, and then it would be like, oh, Yazeed is currently online playing, Square or whatever, and he's by himself. And so we could do something where if you wanted to make your thing publicly available, we can create like a DNS record and say, okay, well, instead of just routing this to the private IP on the local network, it's the public IP. And so you like opt in to make your instance public essentially, or I mean, public in this sense means only for my friends. I don't think I ever want a public server, but maybe we would. I don't know, whatever. I mean, it's not fully fleshed out, but just the idea of friends, and I can play with their Homegames thing through the actual internet, and it's opt-in. That's my point.
Nice. I think that's a good idea given the current state of the world.
Yeah.
I think for me, Homegames was originally like chilling with your friends in a singular location. So when you first said it, I was like, ugh, that's like counter to what I think of, bro. But now, like, thinking about it, it's like, oh, wait. If we want people to actually like be able to use this, it would be helpful if they could play it not together, but not like in the same room. Just,
yeah,
given the current world.
Well, yeah, and even outside of that, just thinking of, it might be cool. I mean, I don't know anybody who really lives their life like this. So I don't know if it's a real use case. But if you have like a group of people that are your friends, and then you have another group of friends who are in a different place, like maybe you live far apart, but you all fuck with each other or whatever. Like, yeah, we're friends, but we don't like each other. Like, we don't like go hang out. You know what I mean? But like, you're cool in that level.
Us when you lived in another state.
Maybe. No, not that. Again, I don't know what the use case is, but basically separate groups of friends that don't necessarily hang out in person like that. And it's like, oh, you know, they are playing, like, think of a game where it's essentially team-based and your team competes with another team. Like, if you think about some action games or multiplayer games, they've added these weird meta games where it's like, oh, pick your faction, and so everybody on your faction is fighting against all these other factions. So they have the idea of like a faction, your group against their group, and you have some sort of points, and maybe these points can accumulate like in a persistent way outside of the game, and it's kind of a passive thing that one household can play with another household in a kind of casual back and forth way. Think of like Words with Friends or whatever, but not
like if you and like if people lived in your, like, basically, like if you did battle with me, like you and Zenobia versus Yazeed and Sapphire style.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But it's not moving through like a centralized home games thing. It's just like you're running this shit, and it's code that you could modify, and it's like a cool game that you play with people, and you fuck around, and like, oh, this is running on your computer. Isn't that cool? Hey, maybe you want to like build your own game. I don't know. That jump is huge, but you know what I'm saying? Like, the tools being there, I think, are important.
I think the in-between step that you were missing is like, oh, what if you like modified it a little bit?
Yes, yeah.
Like, oh, what if you know, like, this word started counting as double points, and you're like, yeah, that's because it's an in joke. And then you're like, you know, like if we did like Cake Watch counted as like triple points,
There you go.
and then they're like, oh, and then you modify the game to add that if statement in there, and then that slowly becomes you making your own game. Hell yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like, that's the dream, I think. Like, I don't know. Maybe we could talk about this if whatever. The first time I ever wrote a Hello World, I was like, holy shit, this is fucking it. You know what I mean? Like, when you get that click or whatever, like if it clicks in a way that immediately kind of like just does it for you, instead of like oh, I'm beating my head against this thing and this sucks and this is frustrating. Like, you got to get that payoff of like, oh shit, I see why this is a thing, like why programming is fun or whatever. So if we have a system where some like buddy can just be like, oh, this is cool, but I don't know computers, and then like, oh fuck, I just changed this word to say butts instead of what it said, and like it works. Like, that, I think, is what a lot of people like gets a lot of people in, you know.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Yeah. I would like to take some time to think more about the friend linking thing. Yeah. Maybe well, let's talk about more next podcast too, because I wasn't really expecting to have to think about that.
Yeah, no,
today.
that's fine. I guess, yeah, I don't have a lot of super strong opinions on it yet. Like, except like always, I think it should be not required, and we should only do it if it makes sense. Like, I think a lot of the time I run into this problem of, I think I need to build that, but I have no idea why. You know what I mean? Like, a challenge for me is I keep trying to prioritize what to work on next on a system level to better cater to people who do not exist yet. And so I don't really have a customer to be like, hey, what's important? Like, what's shitty about these tools? What's good about them? I don't really have that kind of feedback. So thinking of something like being able to play multiplayer with other people seems like something I should build, but I don't know why. Because I have this like half-assed, maybe you could run your own Words with Friends, but I don't have a solid like, this is a great idea. But I don't really have that for anything. Like, I don't really have a like, this should work, like this should exist for any of the kind of stuff that we have so far. But I just know it's there. I just don't have a thing yet.
Have you played Kingdoms and Castles or a game similar to that?
I want to say yes, but I don't know because it's so like generic. It's probably, I might be thinking of another one. The name.
Yeah, the name is super generic. The reason I asked that is like basically you build a medieval town, but like piece by piece. Like you place houses, you place roads, you place farms, you get water, like all that stuff. Like you have to like handle all of those things.
Yeah.
I think a fun use case for this might be like a Homegames instance has like a kingdom and that they build up on their own.
Yeah.
And then when they connect to another person, those kingdoms, basically like Clash of Clans, but like weird, what is the word? Not obfuscated, decentralized Clash of Clans. Like literally Clash of Clans where you just connect to your friend's world, pillage their city, and go home.
Yeah, I think that kind of a thing is what I'm thinking of. Like, not in the actual sense of the way that Clash of Clans did it, because I guess in that game the point is to get more people in because the monetization system is a thing, you know. So instead of just trying to, like, I guess I need the system underneath it to be really great instead of like it'll make us money, you know, like, oh, it'll get more people in and it'll be whatever. Like, someone should want to bring in more people and be like, I legitimately like this thing so much, I want to play this thing with you, instead of like, Yazeed, join right now, I need these coins. Like, I get a bonus.
I think the reason I'm thinking about that is like, imagine like a college dorm, right? You have people who live in like dorm 1A, right? They have their little castle. And then people on like dorm 1Q, they have their little castle. And then they're just like, they put up a little sign that's like, you know, raid 1Q. And then they just decimate 1Q. And then 1Q is like, dang, we need more people. So they like grab 1Z. And 1Z is like, yeah, we'll help you on your world. So they all connect to that home game instance. So they build up real quick. And they poop on 1A, and then like 1A is like, shoot, we gotta find some people. They go to like 2Q, and they're like, all right, listen, people underneath you are doo-doo heads. We gotta crush them. And so the whole dorm either is playing it or is aware of this inter-dorm war going on.
Yeah, like I would love that, and the fact that it would be like truly a localized thing. Like, there's no, like, you can't read about that on Facebook or whatever because it's not happening there. Like, it's happening like in person in this thing, and these people are doing this thing. I think that is super cool to me.
Yes, I agree. That would be really cool. It would take a lot of work to get it to that point, but like I said, I'd like more time to think about the friends linking and like kind of the, maybe I have some more questions about the implementation or like goals and things like that. But
and I guess
sorry,
what you gonna say something?
I was gonna ask if you had anything else you wanted to talk about, so yes, go ahead.
I guess just I said like 10 minutes ago I didn't like the idea of a public home games instance, but maybe I do like in this idea of like a super localized thing like a dorm room or whatever. If you had this mode where you can say, you know, put me like in a public, like make my server publicly viewable. I'm throwing out an idea. I don't know if this is a good idea, but if I make it publicly available, then people geographically near me, this is scary, I don't like that, but like people geographically near me for latency reasons or whatever, but can like join my game, and you could play with like someone who lives in a park or whatever. Not lives in a park, lives like across the park or whatever from you, like down the street.
Coyotes who live in the park are hopping on home games. They're fighting the domesticated dogs.
Whatever, they could live in a park too, as long as they have a home game server running there. But just like playing games with people that you know are like around you, which I think might be creepy but might be cool.
I think we should be hesitant around exposing geographical locations, because I know stuff like Tinder and Bumble, it's gotten people killed because you can figure out like, you basically like just track how close you are to somebody and then make some guesses. I think
it would always have to be something where, you know how Apple, like on iOS, it'll tell you, hey, this thing wants your location. Do you want to give it your exact location or your approximate location? I think we would do basically approximate location, but way even more approximate. So basically, instead of saying I'm in this part of this city, it's like, this person's probably in Arizona. We won't tell you. Fuck off. You know. But like we used real data to get like the idea, and we never store this. We just get this and keep this. So it's like the worst we'll ever know about you is Arizona. Anyway, I don't know if it's a good idea. I don't like the creepiness that it could potentially lead to. I'm not trying to whatever. I just think there's some sort of coolness that comes from like I'm drawing with some fucker and I have no idea who or where they are, but maybe that's also terrifying. But if you're into that, like if you opted into the super public, like I'll draw with a random fucker button, that's cool. You know, we could make that.
Yeah, I think against geographic information like that. I think it's okay if you're going to be like, yeah, anyone can join, but like you might have some latency issues because that could literally be like anyone. Like you'd be like in England playing with somebody in like Australia.
Well, let me
that's it.
It's essentially what games do, right? Like if you go to play Call of Duty on a matchmaking server, it's going to give you people on the West Coast. That's approximate.
Yeah, I guess that's okay.
That's what I'm saying.
I like your approximate of approximate. Maybe is okay. I think anything less than that is
again
a little bit
it's just
tricky.
It's just an idea, but I do think the idea of getting location for things like it's so shitty. Like technology is so cool and lets us do such cool things, but because there's like this precedent that's set with the way that people use tools that it immediately makes you a sketchy fuck when you use them. So if I'm like, hey, I think it'd be really cool to make a game where it was able to get the location of your phone relative to every other phone in the house to like paint a map of you guys like relative to each other. I don't know why I think that's cool. I just think that's fucking cool. But
bruh, I want that feature so that I can make my walkie-talkie game. Dang it.
Yes. But this sad reality is like, hey, I need microphone access. You either get someone who's like, yeah, fuck, I don't care, or someone who's like, fuck you, you don't need my microphone. Fuck you, you don't need whatever. And I'm on that side, which makes me like it conflicts when I think about what I want to build. You know what I mean? Because like the set of ideals that I think like I live by or whatever they're not actually being fought against in the way I want to do something, but the end result is something that I would hate if I kind of like didn't think about it or like didn't look at like what I'm saying is if I get a notification on my phone that says some app wants to use my location, I fucking hate that app. But here I am thinking, and the reason I hate that app is because in my head I'm like, you don't need my location, you're fucking the McDonald's app, you know what I mean? But the person at McDonald's is like, yo, we need to know if you're in the restaurant. Like this is just like we give you deals and shit when you're in the store. Like there's an intent behind it, even if it's to sell you a McMuffin. Like there's an intent. It's not just random bullshit. And I'm here like, okay, there is an intent. It's not random bullshit, but I would hate what I'm making if I just looked at it. You know what I mean? Or what I think I want to be making.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the flip side of it is that we can be as explicit as we want when we explain what a game entails before you even join it. Like if I'm making that walkie-talkie game and I need to know, like if I'm basically making a hide and seek via walkie-talkie game, right? And you can like track where people are relative to you. I don't know where I was going with this point. Oh, we can be explicit about that in the game description. Like, hey, this game needs your location data to like, help you find people.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's I think Apple does that, or Google, maybe both. But in the App Store, it's basically like, here's the breakdown of every permission they need and kind of why. Like, they get the explanation or the room to give you a little description as to why. I think that'd be required if we wanted to say, like, okay, here's the set of kind of privileged APIs. They're not privileged, but a set of APIs that the user should know that you're accessing. If we say that we're calling the paint method on the canvas, like the user doesn't give a fuck about that. But if we're like, hey, we're accessing your location data, like, okay, you should know that. We're accessing your microphone, you should know that. And it tells you in the browser, but we should tell you, like, we should be specific, be explicit. And I think the fact that it's open source kind of contributes to that. Even though it doesn't necessarily protect people, it makes people feel protected. Like, I don't know if you get this, but when something is open source, I'm like, oh, someone checked that for bullshit. It's good to use.
Yeah. I was going to say something that I can't say on the podcast, but yes, I know that.
Yeah, it's like
people who are in the industry even say the same thing. Where they're like, oh, it's open source. That means like it's good, right? It's like, nah. Like I've written open source stuff before, and it's all garbage. Yeah, I'm garbage.
Well, and you could do bullshit and show the world you're doing bullshit. It's open to the world, but it's still bullshit. It's kind of like the bystander effect, where you just assume that someone else is taking care of it or will take care of it.
Yep.
And so I think being open source contributes to kind of the whole like transparency thing, because that's like the biggest thing for me. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to be like to do things like this that don't feel creepy. Like if someone's downloading your app, that's cool, but they're not going to hear you on your 3-hour podcast talking about how much you value people's privacy or whatever. Like they don't give a fuck. They just see your app and they're like, no, you want my microphone, you know? So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's fine when they say that, and then all their friends are screaming into their mic, and they're just like, "Oh, how come I can't do that?" And it's like, "Oh, you idiot! Didn't give us permission. You don't get to scream into your phone."
Yeah, we should never let them turn the option back on. If they opt out at the beginning, we just show like a dunce hat on their screen the entire time forever.
Idiot! You messed up, and now you have to live with the consequences. Oh, there's a Vine for that.
Of course, there is.
The Vine where like a little kid's pacing back and forth and his voice gets progressively higher and is like, when will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
Yeah, I guess that's
Sorry for any headphones listeners who just heard me go as high pitched as I can.
It was impressive. It was good.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's it for my home games topics. It was a busy week, super busy week. But yeah, it was cool. I got a lot done. And then next on my list is dev accounts and an asset service, but I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to do productionized infrastructure because, first, I started rewriting a bunch of code because I'm at the point now where feature-wise, it's essentially finished with all the major stuff I wanted to add basically this year. But the code is absolutely shambolic, and I need to basically rewrite the game session, squisher, web client, and maybe some other little tweaks and stuff. But I need to rewrite like a large portion of the core of Homegames, just because I have essentially abused JavaScript to the fullest extent, and it's a fucking nightmare in there, man. So if we want to kind of, it's at the point now where the technical debt or whatever is so much that I need to go and actually clean it up before I keep building on top of it. It's not that it's broken. It's just that it is fragile. And if I were to die tomorrow, I don't think like people would be able to recover like why I sent this array of 912 to the client in this very like generically named function. Like why is everything
those were some questions I raised at the very beginning. I was like, why does this array have like 3 integers in it? And you're like, oh, that's because XYZ. And I was just like, okay.
There's an example of that in the demo that I uploaded because one of the things I did for the device scaling stuff is that the dashboard now, when you connect on a phone, will dynamically, like the client will change its or its aspect ratio to match the actual client screen. So basically, if you go to the dashboard on a phone, it's fit to your phone. And to change the aspect ratio like that, I send a message with like a special byte that says this is the message type and then this is the payload. So the message is literally 912 to say change your aspect ratio to 1:2. It makes sense. It's just that you don't know that unless you know that, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, I gotta rewrite some stuff, and then I'm gonna work on productionizing everything, which to me is rewriting everything, cleaning everything up, and Dockerizing stuff.
Right. I got you. I know I still have to review your Docker PR too, because
I merged that shit. I think I just merged everything.
Oh my god! The hilarious part about the current workflow is you add me as a reviewer on the PR. I get the email that says you've been added to review a PR. I'm like, okay, I'll review this when I get a chance. And then whenever I go to check to see it, it's like this has been merged in. I'm like, okay.
I guess it's like last week I had a change, and then I had another change on top of that change, and another change on top of that change, and it's kind of like this queue of stuff going in. And like, you're more than welcome to leave feedback on those pull requests even after I merge them, because I guess that's like the way to say, hey, this is super fucked or whatever. Like, fix this eventually. I guess for me it was kind of like I know that this stuff needs to be fixed, and we can have that discussion. Not right now. So I guess that's kind of like the mindset there. So now that everything, like I said, kind of works and That video I uploaded is essentially, like I said, the major developer features I wanted to add in 2021 outside of the kind of service stuff and just hardening everything, I guess, making it more or less fragile. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. Rewriting shit, making everything good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I'm excited for it.
Me too. I have a particular friend who I look up to in terms of writing code, and I always think of him when I think of how shitty the stuff I'm writing is sometimes, and I'm just like, what would Connor say? He saw this absolute garbage I'm throwing out right now. So yeah, he wouldn't be happy.
Connor is your rubber duck.
Yeah, he's like, well, the thing, just briefly why I like Connor so much, one of the reasons is because he's very direct. Like, he'll be like, I don't like that. I'm just like, fuck yeah, that's cool. I don't like it either. Fuck me. Yeah, no, I like super honest feedback, but he'll be like, yeah, that sucks, whatever. So, my code is not good.
Right on.
Yeah.
You ready to move on to Song of the Week?
Song of the Week. Go for it, Yazeed.
My Song of the Week was Shadow Moses by Bring Me the Horizon.
Why was this your Song of the Week?
I don't know. When this song first came out, I was into this style of music, and I was into Bring Me the Horizon, and I was very into this song.
Yeah.
And I still kind of am. I don't know what happened, but somewhere along the week this week, I was like, let's listen to something like a little bit of a throwback.
Yeah.
This has been living on a Spotify playlist that I hadn't listened to in probably 2 years or something. The last time I heard this song would have been in college, so
Yeah.
it's been a while.
Yeah, I knew I had heard this song before, and it's one of those things where this is like, I think I talked about this before, but I don't listen to this kind of music. I never really did. I kind of gained an appreciation for the screamy, incomprehensible yelling shit over time, but I really hated it when it was when I was in middle school and stuff. But I've somehow heard this song before, and whenever the chorus started, I immediately recognized it, even though if you had told me this song's name before, I would have been like, I have no idea what the fuck that is. You know what I mean? But I knew this song, so yeah, I guess it sounds like 2006 or whatever. I don't know when it came out, but it kind of sounds like that. 2000.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's the era that it came out in. Honestly, I don't really know why I wanted to find this song on my Spotify playlist, but it kind of just hit me, and I was like, all right, let's do it. And I dug through my Spotify playlist to find it. I was literally searching. I was like, what is the name of this song again?
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was cool. Like I said, it's really not my kind of music, and I never was into it when I was younger. But I appreciate it for what it is, which is dude screaming over guitar. There's a ton of energy. There's a ton of emotion that I don't understand. I literally don't know what he's saying.
I think the point of that is that no one understands those emotions. They're just something that middle schoolers have. Yeah. It's actually 7 emotions in middle school. It's I don't know what these are, and you're just a regular adult, and you're like, those are.
Yeah.
That's what growing up feels like. Yes.
Yeah, being confused and mad at everybody. That's how it is.
Yeah.
I kind of get that with the song "Face Down" by Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. I think we talked about this before.
Yes.
Maybe. Yeah, but that's my song for that, where it's I don't know why, but every now and then I just want to turn that shit up max volume and smash a TV or something.
Oh yeah. Well, I like Parkway Drive, even though I don't listen to it very often anymore, and that's a heavier version of this, and less. I feel like Parkway Drive is a more adult version of this, where they're not talking about emotions and stuff.
Adults don't have emotions.
And they do have emotions, but an adult can sift through their emotions. They aren't why do I have so many adults? I have emotions. Let me ease that out over a course of time to deal with them individually.
Right.
Whereas a middle schooler, a young kid is 7 emotions. That's too many to feel at once. What do I do? But I don't know why this really was a throwback. What's funny about it too is by the time I had started getting into hiking, I had already stopped listening to this genre of music. So I don't know why the week I went hiking is the week that I
Maybe something inside
I got back in. I was like, I gotta listen to this song.
Yeah, the screaming helps me go. You know.
I don't even listen to anything when I hike.
That's probably smart. You probably need to be aware of your environment.
Well, I think you're the one who made the joke that whenever I work out or anything, because I don't listen to music when I do it, it's like I'm training to kill somebody.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're working out, lifting weights, and like really straining yourself, and there's no music, you're fucking crazy, dude. You're gonna go kill somebody that night.
Hell yeah, dude. I go to the gym with. Well, I don't go to the gym now, but I used to go to the gym with no music. I wouldn't even bring ear pods or anything. You just do it straight up.
Yeah, but it's like that's the guy when, like. This is guy B when guy A is in the gym that morning and like the local news comes up and it's like local CEO found to be secret drug dealer / demon person. And then the gym, like this guy, the you in this case, comes in the gym and he has like a little blood on his knuckles and he's like, hey. And then guy A, like he knows that guy B fucking did it because this guy doesn't have headphones. He doesn't own them. You know what I mean? It's obvious in that case.
I own headphones. There's something about working out and just like being in it, hearing your breathing.
Yeah.
It sounds even more menacing.
I just want to hear myself breathe for 45 minutes.
When you go for a run, you really want to hear yourself like pant and gasp for air, you know? I
get it. It's like your body's natural way of saying you're doing something. But yeah, I don't know. I get it, but it's still weird, you know? Like I get people who run. It's like, yeah, if I could get there faster, you're still weird. You know what I mean?
You don't... Who is out here like running in like a grocery store to get to like their olives faster, homie? You run so that you have your body's healthier, so that your mind is more chill.
No, I know. I'm thinking of like the kid in high school. There's always one fucking kid who runs everywhere, and it's like totally, I'm sure, fine people. But they just have like a thing about them where you know that they're the runners. You know what I mean? Like it's just weird. They're weird people, but they're very nice.
I think it's because I was never the runner. I never ran anywhere in high school, so I don't. Maybe I don't have that kind of energy.
I just sometimes I'm walking on the street, or I mean before all whatever when I used to go outside, and like people would just be walking super slow in front of me, and it's just like, I don't care about the social norms. I'll probably never see these people again and whatever. Like I can just run to where I need to go, but the like social pressure of not running is like too much. You know what I mean?
Listen, you can run anywhere as long as you're in the correct attire. You either have to look like you are a respectable member of society, or you gotta look like you run regularly, and there is no in between. You can't be running in like a tattered old t-shirt and like pajama bottoms. That's a serial killer escaping the murder, okay? You can wear like a tattered old t-shirt, like running shorts, that's fine, but like you can't be schlumming it and sprinting out there, you know?
That's true. Like just the other day, like literally 2 days ago, I saw a dude wearing a button-up, like a polo button-up, and then jean shorts. And he was running, and I was like, oh, like you look like you just stabbed someone at a Circle K. You know what I mean? But like he's just running, but I get the vibe. It paints a picture.
Yeah, homeboy either pooped himself and he needs, or that guy needs to get back to his Zoom meeting, and he needs to be presentable on the top half, and he can just be whatever on the bottom half.
But it was one of those polo button-ups where it's like, you don't know how that looks on you, you know, where it's like,
oh no,
it's like you think you look fancy, but you look like you stab motherfuckers at the Circle K, like for a living. You know? Just
the solid plain color one or whatever.
And it's like loose around the neck, like someone's been yanking on the neck of the shirt. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
No.
That's what I'm saying. Anyway, my song of the week was California World by Lil Peep. I believe this is a mixtape or EP or something that came out a couple weeks ago. Like it was re-released, I believe. I'm not super familiar with a lot of the like early Lil Peep work, but I read somewhere that it's a re-release, not necessarily like a posthumous release. Anyway, California World.
Lil Peep dead?
Jesus Christ, are you serious? Yeah, Lil Peep is dead.
Have we talked about this before?
Yeah, we have like several times.
Right.
It's totally my fault because I keep making Juice WRLD and Lil Peep songs my song of the week, partially because they're just really great, but also because Yazeed keeps fucking forgetting that both of these men have passed away.
I don't know either of them. I did remember that Juice WRLD was dead. That's something I've committed to memory, except for the last time you were like, this song is by Juice WRLD, and it's really good, but it makes me sad that he died, and I almost said, he's dead. Shit.
Yes.
Okay.
But yes, unfortunately, Lil Peep, remember, this was like last March, I was telling you about the Netflix documentary on Lil Peep, because it's actually pretty good. Anyway, again,
I'll tell you straight up right now, I don't remember last March. Remember last March.
This is the first one where I came back when I told you that the Seattle airport was empty because the coronavirus was just starting.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Anyway, Lil Peep, tragic. I love Lil Peep. His music is really good. Trend-setting type stuff. This is one of those songs where it's really good at kind of painting a vibe. It makes me feel like I lived... Like, I can live this experience even though I've never lived anything kind of like this experience. This song sounds like Fucking Pretty Girls by SeaWorld and on, like, your vacation. You know what I mean? It's like you're in California vibing out. Everybody is beautiful. And you're just like... It feels like that. And I live a very not that life. You know what I mean? So... Yeah.
I like this song. It was... I wasn't expecting it because I actually... This is probably like the third or fourth song. Basically, like, however many songs you've recommended from Little Peep is how many Little Peep songs I've... Yeah. I keep calling him Little Peep. Little Peep. That's how many songs I've listened to. Like, this is probably... Like, I like this song. It hit the kind of chilled out vibes that I like in music.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting that from you, so this is a nice...
Yeah.
Nice little, like, change.
Yeah, for sure. It's I read someone kind of talking about this song being the standout from this EP for them. And this was before I listened to this. But I just played it kind of front to back. And when this song came on, I saw that this was the only one on the EP that had a feature on it. And so when I see features from people I don't, especially names I've never heard of, I'm just like, oh, fuck, here we go. And it makes me even sadder when I like the main artist on the song. But if the guest feature ruins it or doesn't match the energy, that kind of stuff. So anyway, I was kind of expecting to be disappointed once the other dude came in, but when the other dude comes in, it is actually very good. It's super what's the word I'm looking for? In opposition to
juxtaposed?
Yes, juxtaposed, I guess, if I want to sound like I went to college. But it juxtaposes the kind of rest of the song with the very chill energy like we mentioned. But the little, like, hook or whatever the thing is called that the guy comes in with, just like talking about fucking bitches, and the drums change, and then it goes back to being regular, and it's like, oh shit, that was great. Like, this whole song is so good to me. I kept playing it on repeat this entire week. So yeah, my song of the week for sure.
Nice. This song I would go on a Spotify playlist if I wanted it to, basically.
Nice. If I wanted to do this, I would do this, but I don't want to do this. I get you.
Not really. The problem is that sometimes my Spotify playlist is so monotonous that sometimes stuff that sticks out really gets...
Yeah.
Really sticks out. And this is one of those songs that's, like, similar to my song, and I'd vibe with it for a while, and then when it changes, I'd be like, hold on. I don't really like when my, like, that mental shift happens, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. It kind of brings you out of it. It reminds you that the song, like, when the dude comes in with fucking bitches, like, it doesn't matter what you were listening to before, your mind is on that. It's like,
yeah,
maybe the song before was really about relaxing and kind of thinking and stuff, and not necessarily this, you know?
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I like the song. Nice pickup.
Nice. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, crazy. Like, a bunch of music from Lil Peep. Like, he passed away at this point, like, over 2 years ago, and I can still hear some of his stuff that I've never heard before, and I'm like, holy shit, that sounds different. Which is just so crazy, like, to like, speak to the dude's ability to make music. Yeah, I don't know. Super bummer, but good song.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else for Song of the Week?
I do not. No. I don't know why I thought I had something to say, but I didn't. No.
This isn't really a rapid fire question. This is only, like, tangentially related. But do you ever look at your audio recording and see, like, what the spread is in decibels or whatever?
Yeah, I think that, like, I read some tutorials that say you're supposed to keep it pretty evenly between like 0 and 1 on both sides. Like, it should be pretty spiky, but not like spiky.
Mm-hmm.
It should be consistently thick.
Consistently thick. That's a good name for the episode. I'm glad I asked this question.
The second that left my mouth, I was like, all right, episode 68.
Consistently thick.
Yeah.
As long as they have a great one-liner for episode 69, I think it's all worth it at the end.
I'm going to leave that responsibility to you, because I feel like if any one of the two of us is going to be like, hey, at 69, it's going to be you.
Just because I did that at work on a work call doesn't mean that I'm predisposed to that.
Yeah, no, you're totally fine. Totally normal.
All right, everyone.
Oh, that's me. Right?
Oh, wait, I don't do the exits anymore. Oh, my God. Joseph, take us out.
This is the 69th time we've done this, and we still don't know what the fuck we're doing. Thank you, everybody, for listening. As always, you can find our... Oh, God, what am I saying? As always, our music is done by our friend Tynan. He's at Nytan on Bandcamp at Nytan, Nytan. Our website is homegames.io. You can find us on Twitter at homegames.io, or send us an email at podcast@homegames.io to have your email featured on the podcast.
We won't feature every email. Like, if it's like really mean to one of us, I don't think we'd read that out loud.
We've gotten a grand total of 1 email on this show in its entire life, so we promise we'll read literally whatever you send us. So we'll see you next week. I'll read it, not necessarily, like do anything about it.
You'll read it out loud?
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I could.
You're saying if I send an email and you'd read it out loud?
If you send me an email at podcast@homegames.io, I will read it out loud.
All right.
That's my promise to you, Yazeed. And
all right.
As long as it's a word, as long as it's all words that I can say, you know exactly what I'm saying. All right. Anyway.
Yes, I do. Thanks for listening, everyone.
We'll
Bye.
see you next week.